This is Dreamtime Science, where we paint the canvas of your dreams with the soft brushstrokes of scientific wonder. Together we'll explore the mysteries that dance at the edge of consciousness. You know, I've been thinking about how the same sun can feel so warm and bright in the summer, yet soft and gentle in the winter. There's something remarkable about the way Earth's slow, steady tilt and journey around the sun create the changing seasons we feel all year long. Tonight, I want to share with you the quiet, beautiful dance that makes spring, summer, fall, and winter unfold in such a perfect rhythm. If you find peace in these nocturnal discoveries, consider becoming a regular visitor to our quiet corner of science. Share in the comments what topic you'd love to dream about next. Take this moment to settle in, wrap yourself in comfort, release the day's weight from your shoulders, and let your breath become as gentle as starlight. Night drapes over the world, and as you settle in, let your mind drift far beyond the walls around you, past the hush and hum of your daily life, to the ancient pulse that governs all living things. For tonight, we embark upon a journey into the heart of the seasons, a journey not only through science, but through the woven fabric of myth, memory, and dreams. Breathe in, and with each breath, imagine yourself standing at the edge of time, where the line between story and reality blurs. Here, the air is heavy with stories whispered by countless generations, each trying to make sense of the ever-turning wheel of the year. Long before the facts of astronomy were known, the seasons were mysteries, their coming and going both feared and revered, their origins the subject of fireside tales and fevered speculation. The ancients looked up at the sky and saw more than just the sun's relentless rise and fall. They saw patterns, portents, and personalities, a drama unfolding across the heavens. The changing seasons were not mere meteorological events, but cosmic rituals, the breath and heartbeat of the earth itself. Close your eyes and let us visit the cold stone temples of the ancient Greeks, where priests and poets spun tales to explain the bitter chill of winter and the riotous bloom of spring. In their myth, Persephone, beloved daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest, was stolen away by Hades, lord of the underworld. Demeter's grief stilled the growth of every blade of wheat and every bud on every tree, plunging the world into a season of cold and hunger. Only when Persephone returned each year did Demeter's joy bring warmth and life back to the land. Thus the Greeks explained the annual cycle of death and rebirth, of scarcity and plenty, as the consequence of a divine mother's sorrow and joy. This motif of descent and return, of cosmic drama echoing in the world's rhythms, can be found across continents and ages. In the harsh winters of Scandinavia, Norse mythology told of the great wolf skull who chases the sun and his brother Hati who pursues the moon. The endless chase and the periodic covering of the sun and moon, eclipses in our modern understanding, were reminders that the world itself was beset by forces both seen and unseen, and that the darkness of winter might one day become permanent. Further east, the ancient Chinese constructed elaborate calendars, their months and festivals mapped meticulously to the movement of the sun and moon. Here, the balance of yin and yang, the duality of light and dark, warmth and cold, was mirrored in the passing of the seasons. The winter solstice, Dongji, marked the rebirth of the sun, and with it the slow promise of returning warmth. Each transition was a moment of cosmic importance, celebrated with rituals and feasts, for the harmony of nature was thought to depend on humanity's careful observance. Across the ocean, the Maya of Mesoamerica, with their soaring stepped pyramids, charted the heavens with astonishing precision. They could predict the equinoxes and solstices, those silent pivot points in the year's turning. The temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza is a testament to their cosmic vision. Twice a year, at the spring and autumn equinox, the setting sun casts a serpent-shaped shadow that appears to slither down the pyramid's flank, a signal to the gathered crowds that the time of planting or harvest had come once more. In every corner of the globe, humans watched the sky not only for beauty, but for survival. Their stories, their ceremonies, their architecture, all were shaped by the need to understand and anticipate the changing seasons. The world's oldest observatories are not merely instruments of science, but temples to the sun and its power to grant life and death. Let us now step forward, gliding gently from the mythic to the modern, from temples to television screens. For even today, the seasons retain their grip on our imaginations. They haunt our stories, shape our fears, and color our dreams of what might be. Consider, for a moment, the phrase "winter is coming." For readers and watchers of Game of Thrones, these words carry a chill far deeper than any meteorological forecast. In George R.R. Martin's world, the seasons are wild and unpredictable, lasting for years or even decades at a time. Summer might stretch on until it becomes a memory, and then, with little warning, winter descends. A winter that is not just a season, but an ordeal, an existential threat. This vision of a world at the mercy of uncontrollable seasons is more than a fantasy. It echoes ancient anxieties. What if spring never returns? What if the sun's warmth is withdrawn for good? In our scientific age, we may know more about the mechanics of Earth's orbit and axial tilt, but the primal fear remains, the sense that we are small and vulnerable, our fates bound to the rhythms of a vast, impersonal cosmos. Science fiction, too, is haunted by the season's caprice. In Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, entire planets are defined by their climates, some locked in perpetual winter, others basking eternally in light. The seasons become a metaphor for change, for the rise and fall of civilizations, for the hope that after every darkness, warmth and life will eventually return. Even the most advanced science cannot fully erase the ancient awe. The seasons, after all, shape more than just temperature and rainfall. They govern migrations, of birds, of whales, of butterflies so slight they seem made of sunlight and dreams. They dictate the cycles of planting and harvest, of birth and death. The first green shoots of spring are not merely plants, they are miracles, reminders that beneath the frozen soil life has been waiting, patient and unseen. And so the dance continues, year after year, age after age. The earth spins, tilted like a spinning top caught at a jaunty angle, and as it orbits the sun, the light and warmth reach different parts of its surface in a slow, majestic rhythm. This, we now know, is the engine of the seasons, the simple geometry of a tilted world tracing an ellipse around its star. Yet to reduce the seasons to mere mechanics is to miss their poetry, their power to shape both world and mind. Pause and listen. Beneath the facts, the seasons sing. They are the music of time, and we, their listeners, are shaped by their tune. Think of the way winter settles into the bones, a season of stillness and introspection, when the world seems to draw in its breath and wait. Snow muffles sound, and the days shrink until they are little more than a dim flicker. Fires are kindled, stories are told, and in the long dark, imagination flourishes. For many cultures, winter is not only a time of hardship, but of vision, a season for dreams and omens, when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest. Then comes the thaw, slow at first, then sudden, a rush of green, a riot of birdsong. Spring is a season of urgency, of restless energy. The sap rises in trees, and all living things hurry to make the most of the returning light. Festivals erupt, celebrating rebirth and renewal. Eggs are dyed and hidden, bonfires are lit, and in the northern lands people gather to dance around maypoles, weaving ribbons in patterns as old as memory itself. Summer arrives in a blaze, languorous and golden. The sun climbs high, and the days stretch out, luxurious and long. Crops ripen, rivers run swift and full, and the world is awash in colour. It is a season of abundance, of work and play, of feasts and fairs. Yet even as we revel in summer's gifts, a subtle melancholy lingers, the knowledge that the light must one day fade, that autumn waits just beyond the horizon. Autumn's arrival is both a glory and a warning. Leaves flame and fall, fields are harvested, and animals prepare for the cold to come. There is a sweetness in the air, a sense of endings and beginnings. In many cultures, autumn is a time for honoring the dead, for giving thanks, for remembering that life is a cycle, not a straight line. The year turns, and with it we turn, growing older, wiser, and perhaps more attuned to the great dance that enfolds us. The seasons are both circle and spiral, returning and yet never quite the same. No two winters are identical. No two springs bring precisely the same green. Our ancestors knew this, and so do we, in our bones, even if we have forgotten the old stories. The world turns, and we with it, carried by the invisible threads that tie us to the sun and stars. In the quietest hours of the night, when the wind rattles the windows and the fire burns low, there is comfort in knowing that the cold will pass, that the light will return. The seasons promise continuity, a reassurance that the world's story is not finished, that after loss comes renewal, after darkness, dawn. And yet, beneath this sense of order, a deeper truth stirs. The seasons are not immutable. They have shifted and changed across the millennia, dancing to rhythms vaster than any human life. There have been ages of ice, when glaciers crept across the land, and ages of warmth, when forests covered what are now deserts. Even now, the balance is delicate, the dance precise yet vulnerable to disruption. But that is a tale for another time, a chord to be plucked in a later movement of our story. For now, let us linger in the threshold, poised between myth and science, between past and present. The dance of earth and sun continues, as inexorable as the tide, as mysterious as the stars. Above us the sky keeps its secrets, and below the earth turns, always turning, in a slow waltz that gives us winter and spring, summer and autumn, year after year after year. The world outside is quiet, the night deep and still. Yet, if you listen closely, you may hear the distant echo of ancient voices, telling tales of gods and monsters, of heroes and harvests, of loss and return. The stories have changed, but the need to tell them has not. For as long as the seasons turn, we will wonder, we will imagine, and we will seek to understand the dance that shapes our days and our dreams. Somewhere in the darkness, a new question stirs, a yearning to know not just the stories, but the mechanisms beneath them. How, exactly, does the tilt of our planet conjure the year's endless pageant? What is the nature of the cosmic choreography that binds us to the sun, drawing forth spring from the cold embrace of winter? The myths have given us meaning. Now, the science waits to show us the steps of the dance itself. But tonight, let the old stories linger a little longer, their embers glowing in the quiet of your mind. The wheel of the year turns on, and the dance of earth and sun continues unhurried, eternal, and ever full of wonder. Beneath the star-laced ceiling of night, as you rest and surrender to the gentle hush of sleep, the world continues its patient, unending dance through the cosmos. The story of the seasons is not a tale written by distance alone, nor by the simple passage of time. It is a ballet, graceful, intricate, and ancient, choreographed by invisible forces and subtle tilts, by the geometry of space and the persistent rhythms of celestial motion. Let us journey then into this cosmic choreography, where each participant moves to a silent music that has played for billions of years. The first movement in this ballet is Earth's tilt, its axial inclination. To the casual observer, Earth seems upright, spinning contentedly around its axis as it orbits the Sun. But in truth, our planet is forever leaning, its axis tipped at an angle of about 23.5 degrees relative to the plane of its orbit. This tilt is the master key that unlocks the secret of the seasons. You might imagine the solar system as a vast, thin disk, with the planets orbiting in nearly the same flat plane. Now picture Earth as a spinning top, but one whose spindle is not perpendicular to this disk. Instead it leans, unwavering, always pointing toward a fixed direction in space, today toward the star Polaris, the North Star. As Earth journeys around the Sun, this axial tilt means that different parts of the planet receive sunlight at different angles and for different durations throughout the year. In June, the North Pole is tipped sunward, and the Northern Hemisphere is bathed in sunlight's fullness. The sun arcs high in the sky, its rays striking the land more directly, concentrating their warmth. Days stretch long, nights shrink. This is the season we know as summer in the north. 6 months later, Earth has travelled halfway around its orbit. Now the South Pole leans sunward, and the Southern Hemisphere claims the sun's favour. The North, meanwhile, shivers in the sun's lower, more slanting rays. The days contract and winter's quiet settles in. This, then, is the first truth of the seasons. They are born not of how near or far we are from the sun, but from how we are turned toward it. Yet the myth persists that Earth is closest to the sun during summer and farthest away during winter. Perhaps it is a comforting simplicity, or perhaps it is the way distance seems to govern so much of our everyday experience. But here, in the realm of planetary motion, the truth is more nuanced and more beautiful. Earth's orbit is not a perfect circle, but an ellipse, a gentle oval with the sun nestled off-center. This means there is indeed a time each year when Earth is closest to the Sun, called perihelion, and a time when it is farthest, known as aphelion. Curiously, perihelion occurs in early January, during the Northern Hemisphere's winter, and aphelion in early July, amidst its summer. The difference in distance is subtle, about 5 million kilometers, or roughly 3% of the total span. If distance were the architect of the seasons, the Northern Hemisphere would be gripped by coldest winter when Earth is closest to the Sun, and warmed by summer as it drifts away. Yet the reverse is true. The elliptical shape of Earth's path does have a minor effect. Winters are slightly milder, and summers a bit warmer in the Southern Hemisphere, where the timing of seasons aligns with perihelion and aphelion. But this effect is dwarfed by the influence of axial tilt. To understand why, consider a globe and a lamp, a miniature echo of the sun and earth. Tilt the globe, and you'll see how the light changes. When the pole is tilted toward the lamp, the light falls more directly, spreading over a smaller area, delivering more energy per square meter. When the pole is tilted away, the light grazes the surface, spreading thin, and the warmth is diminished. This is the heart of the matter. At the equator, the sun's rays strike close to perpendicular year-round. But as you move toward the poles, the angle shifts dramatically with the seasons. In summer, the higher sun means intense, concentrated sunlight. In winter, the low arc and feeble rays bring chill and dimness. The length of day follows suit, long days in summer, short in winter, further amplifying the effect. Think also of the solstices and equinoxes, those celestial milestones that mark the turning of the year. At the summer solstice, around June 21st, the North Pole is tilted closest to the sun. The circle of illumination, the boundary between night and day, envelops the Arctic Circle in 24-hour daylight, while the Antarctic Circle is plunged into unbroken night. At the winter solstice, the situation reverses. The equinoxes in March and September are the moments of balance, when day and night are equal everywhere, and the sun rises due east and sets due west. But the ballet does not end here. The Earth's tilt is not fixed, but participates in a slow, stately wobble, a phenomenon known as axial precession. Imagine a spinning top again, and how its axis gently traces a circle as it slows. In a similar fashion, Earth's axis describes a slow, conical motion, completing one full circle every 26,000 years. This precession subtly shifts the orientation of Earth's tilt relative to the stars and the Sun. Because of precession, the identity of the North Star changes over millennia. Thousands of years ago, it was not Polaris, but Thuban in the constellation Draco that marked true north. In another 12,000 years, it will be Vega's turn to preside over the sky. Precession also affects the timing of the solstices and equinoxes relative to Earth's position in its elliptical orbit. Over many millennia, the slow wobble causes the seasons to drift with respect to perihelion and aphelion. Today, Northern Hemisphere winter coincides with perihelion, but in 13,000 years, summer will arrive at that closest approach to the sun. The cycle is so gradual that it escapes the notice of a single human lifetime, yet its cumulative effects shape the rhythm of ice ages and the long ebb and flow of climates. There are other, subtler variations too. The angle of Earth's tilt itself, called obliquity, is not constant but oscillates between about 22.1 and 24.5 degrees in a 41,000-year cycle. When the tilt is greater, the seasons grow more extreme, hotter summers, colder winters. When the tilt is less, the seasons become milder. This slow breathing of the planet's inclination has, over aeons, played a role in the waxing and waning of glaciers and the slow migration of biomes across the continents. Returning to the present, imagine yourself standing on a field as the year rolls gently onward. In spring, the sun climbs higher each day, the world awakening with warmth and light. By midsummer, the sun's path is highest and longest, its rays pouring down with unrestrained energy. Then comes the slow descent into autumn, the sun lowering its arc, shadows lengthening, the air cooling. Winter arrives, the sun rising late, arcing low and setting early, its light slanting weakly across the land. The sensation of the seasons is not just physical, but woven into the fabric of life. Plants respond to day length, budding and flowering in rhythm with the sun's passage. Animals migrate, hibernate, or molt in time with the changing light. Human cultures, too, have shaped their calendars, ceremonies, and myths around the turning of the year. Solstices and equinoxes mark festivals of light and harvest, of rebirth and remembrance, their dates inscribed in ancient stones and stories. The interplay of tilt, orbit, and precession is exquisitely balanced. If Earth's axis were straight up and down, there would be no real seasons, just a perpetual equatorial summer and polar winter. If the tilt were more extreme, the seasons would rage with greater contrast, perhaps challenging the resilience of life. Even small changes in the tilt and the shape of Earth's orbit have, over geological ages, been enough to tip the balance between warm interludes and icy epochs. Consider, too, the way sunlight itself is scattered and absorbed as it traverses the atmosphere. In summer, when the sun is high, its rays travel a shorter path through the sky, losing little of their energy. In winter, the sun's low angle means its light must slice through more atmosphere, scattering blue and green rays, diffusing warmth. The very color of the sky changes with the seasons, the deep azure of midsummer giving way to the pallor of winter's light. The cosmic ballet is not limited to Earth alone. The other planets, too, have their own variations. Mars, with a tilt similar to Earth's, experiences seasons, though they are shaped by a more elliptical orbit and a much thinner atmosphere. Uranus, tipped almost onto its side, endures seasons of unimaginable strangeness, 40 years of unbroken daylight, followed by 40 years of night at its poles. Each world spins and wobbles, each world orbits and tilts, each world writes its own seasonal story in the language of celestial mechanics. Yet here, on our blue planet, the familiar pattern persists. The slow turn of the year, the waxing and waning of daylight, the pulse of warmth and cold, these are the gifts of our particular tilt and our gentle orbital path. And always the background music of precession plays on, shifting the stage ever so slightly, age after age. If you could watch the Earth from afar, floating above the solar system, you would see the planet's axis holding steady, always pointing toward its celestial mark, while the globe traces its looping path around the sun. You would see the polar caps tilting toward and away from the light, the continents basking in summer and slumbering in winter, the swirling clouds forming patterns that echo the great cycles below. But from the surface, in the places where we live and dream, the seasons are experienced as moments. The first blush of spring, the long golden evenings of summer, the crisp air and falling leaves of autumn, the hush and hush of winter's snow. These are the visible signs of a dance that began long before humanity arrived to witness it, and will continue long after we are gone. As you lay in the gentle darkness, listening to the distant echoes of the cosmic ballet, remember that the world beneath you is tilting and turning, orbiting and wobbling, performing its ancient steps in perfect synchrony with the sun. The seasons are not merely the result of distance, but of alignment, of angle, of time measured not in hours, but in eons. And so the story continues, each year a new revolution, each day a step in the dance. Ahead lies the unfolding tale of how these grand cosmic motions shape the climate, the living tapestry of Earth, and the rhythms of life itself. The ballet is unending, the music eternal, and as the world turns beneath the stars, the next act quietly awaits its cue. The yearning to understand the heavens is as old as human curiosity itself. Before there were telescopes, before the language of mathematics had taken form, people looked up at the changing sky and wondered about its rhythm. It was not merely idle speculation. For countless generations, the predictability of the seasons, when rains would come, when rivers would swell, when the earth would green and when it would brown, meant the difference between feast and famine, between security and uncertainty. And so, across millennia and civilizations, humans became stargazers, patient observers, and ingenious inventors of tools to decipher the celestial script. Let us begin in the deep past, where the first astronomers were often priests or shamans. Their tools were simple: a keen eye, a memory for patterns, and sometimes a carefully placed stone or stick. At places like Nabta Playa in the Nubian desert, or the famous Stonehenge in the English countryside, ancient architects arranged massive stones to align with the rising or setting sun on solstice days. These silent sentinels, standing through the centuries, were among humanity's first fixed instruments for measuring the changing angle of the sun. They marked the longest and shortest days, the turning points of the year, and by extension foretold the coming of warmth or cold, planting or harvest. But as societies grew more complex, so too did their instruments. In the bustling marketplaces of Alexandria or the libraries of Baghdad, astronomers began to craft portable devices to measure the sky's shifting face. The astrolabe, an intricate disc of brass or wood, inscribed with circles and marked with rotating pointers, became the favored companion of scholars from the Mediterranean to the Middle East. Its invention is often traced to ancient Greece, attributed to Hipparchus or perhaps Apollonius of Perga, though its refinement and widespread use blossomed in the hands of Islamic astronomers centuries later. A well-wrought astrolabe is a thing of quiet beauty, and in skilled hands a versatile servant. Imagine a scholar standing atop a minaret at dusk, holding an astrolabe by its ring so it hangs perfectly vertical. By aligning its pointer, the alidade, with a bright star or the edge of the sun, she can read the altitude of that celestial body above the horizon. She can then, using the engraved scales and rotating plates, calculate the time of night, the direction of true north, and crucially, the sun's changing path across the sky throughout the year. By keeping careful records, she traces the slow migration of sunrise and sunset along the horizon, mapping the dance of the seasons with a precision that would astonish her distant Neolithic forebears. The astrolabe's elegance lies in its abstraction. It is a map of the sky reduced to geometry. Its use reveals a profound realization. The heavens are not random, but governed by patterns, cycles, and, if one is clever enough, rules that can be written down and shared. In this way, the astrolabe and its kin became not only practical tools, but also symbols of humanity's longing to find order in the cosmos. As the centuries passed, the search for understanding grew ever more ambitious. The Renaissance unfurled across Europe, and with it came a flood of invention. Telescopes, those glass-eyed newcomers, allowed astronomers to see deeper into the sky, but for the study of seasons and the sun's apparent motion, other instruments took center stage. Chief among them was the heliometer, literally sun measurer. The heliometer's origins can be traced to the 18th century, when astronomers sought ever more precise ways to measure the angle between celestial objects. A typical heliometer used a clever arrangement of split lenses or mirrors to create double images of the sun or of stars within a single field of view. By adjusting the instrument until the two images overlapped, astronomers could measure tiny angular distances with extraordinary precision, fractions of a degree invisible to the unaided eye. This was not merely an exercise in technical virtuosity. The heliometer allowed astronomers to chart the sun's path with such accuracy that they could discern the minute changes in its apparent position from day to day, month to month. With such data, they refined their understanding of Earth's orbit, its axial tilt, and the geometry that gives rise to the seasons. One of the heliometer's most celebrated achievements came in the 19th century, when Friedrich Bessel used it to measure the parallax of the star 61 Cygni. Though parallax is not directly about seasons, it is a cousin to that branch of celestial measurement. Both are concerned with the apparent shifting of objects in the sky due to the observer's changing viewpoint. By measuring stellar parallax, Bessel provided the first direct evidence that the Earth does indeed move around the Sun, a fact with profound implications for our understanding of why the seasons change as they do. Yet even as these instruments grew more sophisticated, the quest to understand the seasons was not confined to observatories and laboratories. Sometimes the most revealing experiments were those performed with simple means and a spirit of curiosity. Consider the work of Eratosthenes, the Greek scholar living in the Egyptian city of Alexandria more than 2,000 years ago. Eratosthenes had heard that, at noon on the summer solstice, the sun shone directly down a well in the city of Syene, now Aswan, casting no shadow. But in Alexandria, nearly 800 kilometers to the north, vertical sticks did cast a shadow at the same moment. Eratosthenes reasoned that this difference in shadow length was due to the curvature of the Earth. By measuring the angle of the shadow in Alexandria, about 7.2 degrees, and knowing the distance between the two cities, he calculated the Earth's circumference with remarkable accuracy. Though not directly a study of the seasons, his experiment elegantly demonstrated that the sun's apparent motion and the changing length and direction of shadows are intimately bound up with the geometry of our planet and its path through space. As centuries flowed into one another, as empires rose and fell, the study of the seasons remained a thread connecting the efforts of countless observers. In the 20th century, a new age of technology dawned, and with it, the tools of the stargazers underwent a revolution. The telescope, now bristling with electronics and perched atop remote mountaintops, peered deeper into the universe than ever before. Yet to understand the seasons, scientists look to even more cutting-edge devices, satellites. Launched beyond the distorting veil of Earth's atmosphere, satellites offered a vantage point undreamt of by earlier generations. Instruments such as the Total Ozone Mapping Spectrometer or the Earth Radiation Budget satellite orbited high above, taking the pulse of the planet. These mechanical sentinels measured not only the sun's position, but also the precise distribution of sunlight over the Earth's surface, the reflectivity of clouds and ice, and the subtle shifts in the planet's energy balance as the seasons turned. With satellites, the study of the seasons became a science of global scope, integrating data from every corner of the Earth. From their lofty perches, satellites confirmed what earlier astronomers had painstakingly deduced, that the seasons are governed not by changes in Earth's distance from the Sun, but by the tilt of its axis, a gentle inclination of about 23.5 degrees. This tilt causes the sun's rays to strike different parts of the globe at varying angles throughout the year, creating the familiar cycle of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. But satellites also revealed subtler patterns, the migration of weather systems, the waxing and waning of polar ice, the greening of continents as spring unfurls, the browning as autumn encroaches. The seasons, it turns out, are not merely a matter of sunlight and shadow, but a symphony of interwoven phenomena, atmospheric, biological, and geological, all orchestrated by the turning Earth. In this era of modern observation, the study of the seasons is no longer the province of solitary scholars, but a vast endeavor, uniting scientists across disciplines and borders. Meteorologists model the global circulation of air and ocean, seeking to predict the onset of monsoons or the arrival of El Niño. Botanists track the flowering of plants, the migration of animals, the timing of harvests. Climatologists examine the slow pulse of ice ages and the quickening drumbeat of climate change, all through the lens of seasonal cycles. Yet amid all this data, all this technological wizardry, there remains a place for the simple, direct observation that has guided stargazers since time immemorial. In a quiet garden, away from city lights, a child might trace the shadows of a stick over the course of a year, marking the changing arc of the sun. In a remote village, an elder might teach the rising of a particular star as a sign that rains are near. The tools may have changed, grown more precise, more complex, but the heart of the enterprise remains the same: to watch, to measure, to understand. From the astrolabe to the heliometer, from Eratosthenes' stick to the silent eyes of satellites, each tool tells a story, not only of the heavens, but of the people who built them. Each is a testament to the human desire to peer beyond the obvious, to seek patterns in the world around us, to bind together the cycles of sky and earth into a coherent whole. Even the great telescopes, those giants of glass and steel that dot mountaintops and deserts, play their part. Though they are best known for exploring distant galaxies, they are also used to track the sun's activity, to observe the subtle shifts in its output that can nudge the seasons in unexpected ways. And it is here, at the edge of the known and the unknown, that the work of astronomers like Edwin Hubble enters our story. Hubble's observations in the early 20th century transformed our understanding of the universe, revealing that the galaxies are not static but rushing away from us in all directions. This discovery did not directly explain the seasons, but it underscored a deeper truth. The universe is in motion, and so are we. The Earth's journey around the sun, the slow precession of the equinoxes, the tilt and wobble of our axis, each is a manifestation of cosmic dance, a blending of local and universal rhythms. Clever experiments, old and new, continue to deepen our understanding. In classrooms, students use globes and lamps to model the tilt of the Earth and the angle of sunlight, watching as the seasons play out in miniature. In laboratories, physicists analyze ancient ice cores, teasing out the secrets of past climates and the shifting patterns of seasons long gone. In observatories, astronomers study the subtle variations in the sun's output, searching for connections between solar cycles and seasonal weather. The story of the tools of the stargazers is, in the end, a story of ingenuity, a record of questions asked and answers pursued, of knowledge built layer upon layer. Each tool, each experiment, each observation is a stepping stone, a marker on the winding path of discovery. And though our instruments have grown ever more powerful, there remains a humility in the gaze that seeks understanding, an awareness that the next answer will only open new questions, and that the sky will always hold more secrets than we can fathom. So as the night deepens and the stars wheel overhead, we find ourselves inheritors of an ancient tradition. The same urge that led the builders of Stonehenge to lift their great stones, the same curiosity that drove Eratosthenes to measure shadows, the same wonder that inspired Hubble to peer into the depths of space, these live on in every careful observation, every quiet calculation, every gaze lifted to the turning sky. In the quiet that follows, you might picture the Earth itself as a kind of astrolabe, its axis inclined, its continents awash in shifting sunlight. The instruments we wield, whether fashioned from brass, glass, or silicon, are extensions of our senses, bridges between our fleeting lives and the cycles that endure beyond memory. And as the seasons turn, measured now by satellites and computers, as once by stones and shadows, we stand still as stargazers, watching, wondering, seeking to know. Ahead lies the unfolding story of how these understandings shape our world and our future, as the ancient dance of the seasons continues its unending round. As the world turns slowly beneath an endless dome of stars, a hush falls over the land. In this quiet hour, let us draw the curtains of our minds aside and gaze inward and outward, tracing the threads that bind the pulse of the seasons to the heartbeats of humanity. The ceaseless ballet of earth, spinning and tilting through the dark, does more than paint the meadows green or strip the branches bare. It shapes us, roots us, and calls us to meaning again and again. Close your eyes and listen, not just with your ears, but with a deeper sense, somewhere between memory and imagination. Can you feel it? The subtle pull of the years turning, the gentle nudge of an ancient rhythm echoing through your own bones. For as long as humans have lifted their faces to the sky, the seasons have been both clock and compass, sculptor and muse. The lengthening of shadows in autumn, the chill that sharpens the air, the slow return of birdsong in spring, all these are more than weather. They are the architecture of our lives. Long before we measured time in hours and seconds, we measured it in the slow unfurling of leaves, the swelling of seeds, the ripening and the fall. The earliest calendars were not marked in ink, but in the great wheel of the sky, the swelling of constellations, the arc of the sun, the patience of the moon. Millennia ago, our ancestors watched the heavens with a mixture of awe and necessity. The return of certain stars, the waxing and waning of daylight, were not abstractions. They were matters of survival, when to sow, when to reap, when to gather, to store, to prepare for the lean months ahead. In the cradle of agriculture, the seasons were inscribed into every act of daily life. In the fertile valleys of the Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Yangtze, humanity learned to read the language of the earth. The rise and fall of rivers, the gentle or savage return of rain, the way the sun climbed higher or lower in the sky, these were the verses of a story we learned to tell with our hands. We built our lives around these rhythms, learning to coax green life from the brown earth time after time. The first farmers, eyes clouded with hope and anxiety, watched the sky for omens, trusting that the cycle would turn as it always had. Sometimes it did, sometimes it did not. In this uncertainty, myth was born. Gods of sun and rain, goddesses of harvest and frost, were summoned from the collective need to understand and to survive. As the centuries unfolded, the changing seasons did more than dictate the rhythm of labor. They became the scaffolding for our celebrations, our fears, our hopes. The solstices and equinoxes were not mere dates, but thresholds, moments of passage when the world seemed to hold its breath. Across the frost-touched fields of northern Europe, bonfires blazed on the longest night, a defiance of darkness and a prayer for the sun's return. In the warmth of Mediterranean villages, people gathered to honor the harvest, sharing bread and wine, stories and song. In every corner of the globe, the turning of the year became a canvas on which we painted meaning. Consider for a moment the way the seasons shape not just our outer lives but our inner ones. There is a quiet introspection to winter, a gathering of thought as the world contracts and grows still. In these long nights people huddle close, telling stories, remembering those who came before, planning for what might come. When the days begin to lengthen, a restlessness stirs. Spring is not just a time of planting, but of renewal, a chance to begin again. The world bursts open with colour, and so do we, feeling the urge to clean, to explore, to celebrate. Summer is the season of abundance, of outward movement, of long days and laughter echoing across fields and beaches. And then autumn, the gentle winding down, the gathering in, the bittersweet beauty of endings and preparations. Throughout history, these cycles have inspired more than myth and ritual. They have shaped our very languages, our art, our sense of self. Poets have likened youth to spring, maturity to summer, wisdom to autumn, and old age to winter. The seasons become metaphors for the stages of a life, teaching us acceptance, patience, and hope. The Japanese have a word, mono no aware, for the poignant awareness of the transience of things, a sensitivity to the ephemeral beauty of falling leaves, fading blossoms, the hush of snow. This sensitivity is not just aesthetic, it is a deep knowing rooted in the fabric of reality. Even in our modern era, when technology seems to insulate us from the old raw urgencies of the weather, the seasons persist as an anchor. The hum of air conditioners and the glow of electric lights can soften the extremes, but they cannot erase the longing we feel for a sunbeam in winter or the relief of rain after a parched summer. Our bodies remember what our minds may try to forget, that we are creatures of the earth, tuned to its cycles. Science, too, has deepened this sense of connection. The study of circadian rhythms reveals that our internal clocks, those intricate dances of hormones and neurotransmitters, are calibrated not just to the turning of the day, but to the broader sweep of the seasons. Light enters our eyes, telling our brains when to wake, when to sleep, when to shift gears for the coming cold or warmth. Melatonin, serotonin, cortisol, they ebb and flow in sympathy with the world outside our windows. Seasonal affective disorder, that melancholy that sometimes descends in the low light of winter, is more than mood. It is biology, a testament to the way our bodies listen to the sky. Our connection to the seasons is not only physiological nor purely cultural. It is also philosophical, a window into the deep mystery of existence itself. In the endless return of spring after winter, of dawn after night, we glimpse something profound, the promise of renewal, the inevitability of change. The world is not static. It is not a clock wound up and left to tick. It is a living, breathing organism, pulsing with cycles of growth and decay. The great religions and philosophies of humanity have been shaped by this understanding. In Hinduism, the wheel of samsara turns, life and death and rebirth following one another as surely as the seasons. In the Taoist tradition, the interplay of yin and yang is mirrored in the alternation of warmth and cold, light and dark, fullness and emptiness. The ancient Greeks saw Persephone's descent and return as the explanation for the barren months and the blossoming ones. Even in the secular imaginations of poets and thinkers, the idea of the cycle, of return and transformation, remains central. But the seasons are not only a story of repetition. they are also a story of change. No two springs are the same, nor any two autumns. The world turns, but it does not come back to where it began. The Earth's path around the sun is an ellipse, not a circle, and the slow wobble of its axis, precession, drifts the timing of solstices and equinoxes by tiny increments over millennia. The climate itself shifts over centuries and eons, the ice advancing and retreating, forests yielding to grasslands and back again. In the great sweep of time, the seasons themselves are impermanent, an exquisite, fragile pattern that has shaped life, yet is itself shaped by forces beyond comprehension. Human civilization has always walked the edge between certainty and uncertainty, using the seasons as both guide and warning. The first astronomers, watching the slow drift of the sun along the horizon, built monuments to mark the year's turning: Stonehenge, Newgrange, Chichen Itza. These were more than calendars. They were acts of reverence, acknowledgments of our smallness in the face of the cosmos. With the knowledge of the seasons came power, the ability to predict, to plan, to survive. But there was always humility too, for the seasons are never entirely in our control. This humility is perhaps more urgent now than ever. As the climate warms and patterns shift, the old certainties are challenged. The sowing and reaping that once followed predictable rhythms become fraught with new risks. Wildfires rage in the heart of summer, floods drown the autumn crops, winter's snow comes late or not at all. The seasons, once so reliable, are revealed to be contingent, dependent on balances delicate and vast. And yet, within this uncertainty, there remains a thread of continuity, a lesson in resilience. The seeds that sprout after fire, the animals that migrate or hibernate or bloom in response to subtle cues, the ways in which communities adapt, finding new rituals and new meanings, these are all testaments to the power of change within the cycle. Human beings, too, have always found ways to move with the seasons, to bend and not break, to find hope in the return of the light. In art and literature, the seasons return again and again as symbols of longing, loss, and return. The cherry blossoms of Japan, blooming for just a handful of days, draw crowds who come to witness their beauty and to mourn its passing. The harvest festivals of Europe and North America, with their sheaves of grain and pumpkins, are both celebrations of abundance and acknowledgments of the coming dark. In the music of Vivaldi, in the paintings of Monet, in the novels and poems of countless writers, the changing of the seasons is a motif as old as storytelling itself. But perhaps the deepest lesson of the seasons is not found in any one festival or myth, but in the simple act of noticing. To stand quietly on the threshold of morning, feeling the first warmth of spring on your skin, to watch the leaves drift down in spirals, gold and crimson against a slate-grey sky, to listen to the hush of snow, the hum of insects, the call of returning geese. In these moments we are reminded that we are not separate from the world, but part of its unfolding story. The seasons are a kind of mirror, reflecting both the vastness of the cosmos and the intimacy of our own lives. The tilt of Earth's axis, set in motion billions of years ago, echoes in the tilt of a child's face toward the sun, the arc of a farmer's hand scattering seed, the circle of friends gathered around a table as the days grow short. The cycles of birth and death, of joy and sorrow, are not abstractions, but lived realities shaped by the world's turning. As the night deepens and the stars wheel overhead in their slow, silent procession, we might ask, what does it mean to live in a world shaped by seasons? What wisdom can we draw from this endless dance of light and darkness, warmth and cold, fullness and emptiness? Perhaps it is the wisdom of patience, the understanding that growth takes time, that endings prepare the way for beginnings. Perhaps it is the wisdom of gratitude, the knowledge that abundance is fleeting and therefore precious. Or perhaps it is the wisdom of humility, the recognition that we are small but not alone, that our lives, like the seasons, are brief passages in a much larger story. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the quiet music of the world turning, the faint breath of wind in the grass, the pulse of your own heart, steady and sure. Outside your window, the night is alive with possibility. Somewhere, a seed is stirring beneath the soil, sensing the subtle change of light. Somewhere, an old tree stands silent, its rings counting time in patient circles. Somewhere, a river is swelling with the melt of distant snows, carrying with it the memory of seasons past. Let your thoughts drift, like leaves on a gentle current, through the long corridors of memory and hope. The seasons will turn, as they always have, weaving their tapestry of cold and warmth, of dark and light. And in their turning, we find not just the story of the earth, but the story of ourselves, unfinished, ever-changing, open to the wonder of what comes next. As our gentle journey through the shifting dance of earth and sun drifts to a close, may you carry the quiet wonder of seasons, turning like a comet tail, fading into the hush of space. Rest peacefully beneath the sky's endless embrace, and when your heart is ready for more Dreamtime tales, return to wander the cosmos with me once again.